Typically when you have a huge fun night in Las Vegas, you go out all night, you can't wake up the next day, and your life is in disarray for several days, weeks after the fact. But Ovechkin and the Capitals go to Vegas. He scores a hat trick, getting him closer to breaking the all-time goal scorer NHL record. Get in a plane, which I'm sure felt more like a Vegas hotel than their small stint in the city itself, land in Utah, and continue the party all over Salt Lake City. Unfortunately, the Utah Hockey Club fell to the Washington Capitals 2-6 last night. We're almost a quarter of the way through. The team is hitting some bumps, and here at the Clean Hits Hockey Podcast, we are going to talk about it. I am Brad. We got Corey here, and we got a very special guest, Cole Bagley, joining from KSL again. Corey, how are you doing, man?
You said the quarter way mark, so in a way, it's season's a good chunk done, but at the same time, not that much is gone so far. And to be only at the quarter way mark and to be shut out 4 times on the season already, and have 4 or 5 games where you want to burn the game tape. If I had any hair left, I'd be pulling it out right now.
Yeah, I am working on that too. So yeah, it's been frustrating. And then there have been those really, really exciting games. I mean, that Carolina game may have been a little ugly just with all the power penalties taken at the end, the amount of shots against, but what an uplifting game. What a way to kind of rally the troops in a way. Even the beginning of that Vegas game, obviously those 3 wins at the beginning of the season were pretty magical. And I just want to see some magic again. And, sometimes they say a long road trip to kind of bond together and kind of grow a little bit together, work through those problems together is just what the doctor ordered. And the Utah Hockey Club is about to embark on a road trip, which will take them through Boston, Pittsburgh, Toronto, and Montreal. So this is going to be a good test to see if maybe we can start the second quarter of the season in the right way. But before we bring out Cole, just want to kind of plug the Clean Hits social media, the website. We have cleanhitshockey.com. That's our blog. That is where you'll find all of our written content. We're kind of working through all the different facets of the prospects right now. Trent's doing some really awesome pieces, kind of focusing on different leagues and all the different players in the pipeline. We got some specialty team articles coming out, kind of dissecting the power play and the penalty kill. And then furthermore, we're going to start kind of profiling some of the individual prospect players, all on cleanhitshockey.com. So be sure you're checking us out there. Of course, we're on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can find that at Clean Hits Hockey on all of those. And I'm sporting the Cult of GMBA General Manager Bill Armstrong shirt. But if you ever want to get some swag, we got some awesome shirts. You can find that link on our Twitter page. We got that Cult of GMBA shirt. We just dropped the Costco Dylan Gunther shirt. And of course, we have some just Clean Hits brand and merchandise. So be sure to check all that out. It's a great way to help support our podcast, all of our written content, and to help kind of grow this community. Also, despite the losses, we do have a Discord community, which you can also find on our link tree in our bio and on our Twitter page. The Discord was pretty insane last night in the game day thread. May have been a little pointing fingers, let's say, tomatoes throwing and whatnot.
What stays in the game day, or what happens in the game day chat stays in the game day chat, right?
Yes, very true. So shout out to everybody in the Discord community. How you guys doing? Hopefully better than last night. But come join us. We have a lot of fun there. But without further ado, here comes Cole from KSL to kind of give us our little quarter of the season report. Cole, how you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
Oh, hanging in there. Well, yeah, I'm kind of hoping that right now we are really starting to see everything that could go wrong go wrong. It definitely feels that way a little bit. The whole fact that Nick Schmaltz doesn't have a goal yet is shocking. Krause only having 2 is kind of shocking. It doesn't seem like the depth scoring is able to kind of get rolling at the same time the top six is scoring. It seems like one player will pop while the rest of the team is kind of lagging behind. Hopefully, like the beginning of the season, it all can start to build up together and bubble together again, and we start to see better production, because don't forget, this team was 15th for goals for per game last year. They're 15th best power play ranking last year, and right now they're slipping to the bottom third of kind of the league rankings in both of those categories. What are kind of your first initial reactions of kind of the roller coaster ride we've been on for at least the past 2 weeks?
Well, I think it's, the Utah Hockey Club is pretty much right where Bill Armstrong said they would be. About 500. Some nights they look like the greatest team in the NHL, and other nights they look like the complete opposite. And I think that's just kind of the theme for this squad this season. And obviously, you hope that it can start trending in a different direction, a more positive direction. But I think what we're seeing is just kind of the result of the roster that they have. A lot of young players, a lot of guys that are inexperienced. When you think about it, this is Dylan Gunther's first 82 game season, and it's Logan Cooley's second, and Kesselring hasn't been around for that long, and he's kind of stepped up into a bigger role, and same thing with the guy like Matthias Bocelli, and obviously Maverick Lamoureux making his NHL debut. So, and Barrett Hayton isn't that old either. So there's just so much young talent on this team that hasn't experienced a lot, that hasn't played a ton of games, and you couple that with some veterans that are struggling a bit, like Schmaltz and Krause, and that's just kind of the result that we're getting is, ups and downs. When they have it and they have it together, and they're playing a full and complete, 60-minute hockey game, they're very good. And I think that's, that's kind of a foresight into the potential and the future of this team. But this team is struggling to play a full 60 minutes every night. And that's why you're seeing games like, the Capitals and the Golden Knights and the Sharks and the Senators. Like, short stretches are just plaguing this team right now. But that's kind of how it goes with young squads. It's growing pains, and like I said, hopefully it starts trending in a more positive direction. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see this kind of extreme valleys and extreme peaks for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. And one thing that's a little scary, and you could almost kind of chalk it up to just the luck or on the misfortune of the schedule right now, but Montgomery got canned in Boston. The team is heading out that way right now. And typically in the NHL, when a coaching change happens, that team generally will have kind of a boost to impress that new coaching, the staff, to impress the GM, make sure that everybody understands that they want to belong on this team, good first impressions and whatnot. So, man, it feels like they're walking into another landmine. You could say the same as when they faced the Sharks after having lost every game in 9 straight, when Colorado finally kind of snapped out of it and actually did not start Georgiev when he was really struggling against this Utah team. It feels like there was another one just
Nashville,
like this.
right after the Barry Trotz rebuild comment.
Yep. And here we go again. So hopefully this is a different scenario where two teams who are kind of struggling are looking to impress their management staff are facing off. And this time, both teams provide the full 60 minutes of play. And hopefully, in this case, Utah comes out on top.
They need to be more desperate. They need to be more desperate. They haven't. Every single one of those games you mentioned, two desperate teams, and they were the less desperate team. So against Boston, they need to play more desperate hockey.
I think that's the most frustrating point too at this point of the season, is just that inconsistency where it's led to throwing away points, right? Not getting the full 2 points in that San Jose game. Just a dagger to the heart to lose that Vegas game with a minute left in regulation. And I mean, to go from an early lead up to 0 where it looks like you're going to get the 2 points, and then you're kind of thinking, okay, maybe we can just get to overtime and get the single point, but then to get 0 points, to lay the egg in Nashville at the point of the season where Nashville was not playing good, and to get no points there. it's very hard to climb up in the standings when you just can't piece together a couple of wins or a couple of points, right? A win here, then a loss, then an overtime loss. You just can't seem to. They haven't strung together back-to-back wins since the 3-0 start to the season, and it's almost impossible to climb up the standings if you're not just banking points on a regular basis, and they haven't been able to do that.
Yeah, this is a team that I know that consistency is the number one thing they're looking for. Pretty much after every win, the comments are, that was great, but we need to do it again. And then after every loss, it's, well, we need to figure out what's going on. We need to find solutions. So, I had a conversation with Bill Armstrong the other day, and, not that he's pleased that this is the state of the team, but, looking at the positives, like there are some good things that can come from this. It's adversity, can really, when you go through the refiner's fire, it can mold you towards greatness. And,
Yeah.
I think it's good for a young captain like Keller to be experiencing this, because it's going to help him discover his identity. What type of captain is he, and how can he lead this team? And then it's going to refine those young guys that I mentioned earlier, the Gunther and Cooley and Lamoureux and all those young players that are the future of this team. They're going to go through those, extreme valleys, but there should be, you would hope that there's a lot of growth through these moments, and that, losing is not fun. And, if they can dig deep and figure this out, and, looking ahead to a couple years, which isn't the most fun thing to do either. When you're fans of a team, when you support a team, you want them to win right now. But we got to remember, this team is still technically in the rebuild, stage. They're hopefully emerging from it. Year 4, it's time to kind of take that next step and start knocking on the door of the playoffs. And I just don't know if they're quite there yet.
Only a handful of points out, but it's slipping, right? And that's the most frustrating part. And it's funny, on the topic there of leadership, can we all agree that rotating A should just stay on Mikhail Sergachev on a full-time basis?
Yes.
I don't know what he has to do to earn
Yeah.
it full-time, but I think he's earned it.
Yeah, even some of his recent comments and post games, and that kind of leads into another question we wanted to ask you. How do you feel this leadership core is developing? Are there players that are currently wearing a letter that are really stepping up? Are there some vets who may not have a letter that are stepping up and becoming a lot more vocal in the room, or is it kind of a group dynamic right now?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to speak to that. I think we're still trying to figure out the identity, not only of this team, but of this leadership group. Every time I talk with Keller, he talks about the fact that he's learning. And I think that's kind of the perspective people need to have in terms of the leadership group right now, is this is kind of the observation period for them. This is the learning period. This team hasn't had a captain for a long time. And I don't know that they've really had leaders that can lead in every facet of the game. But like you mentioned, I really like Sergachev for a lot of different reasons. He's a guy that I think should be in that rotation of wearing an A on his sweater, because I think he's already respected to that level. Over the last couple of weeks, I've been talking to lots of different guys, guys on the defensive end. I talked with Lamoureux and Oli Mata and Ian Cole and Michael Kessering, just asking them their opinions on, hey, who's the leader of the defense? And it was the same answer every time, Sergachev. They say that, while he doesn't, he's not an overly loud guy, but he leads, in both word and deed. And I've just kind of taken notice of that over the last couple of games. And one of my favorite things last night was, I think it was the end of the second period, Stenlund started to get into a little bit of a scuffle near the boards. Sergachev goes in there, pulls, there's a guy that tries to stop Sergachev, first of all. He pushes him right out of the way. Then he grabs whoever was trying to go at it with Stenlund by the collar of the jersey and pulls him away. That, to me, is leadership. And what else is leadership is his production. I think he's third or fourth on the team. He's got a handful of goals and a bunch of assists. Like, this guy, and I think one of you brought up the fact, his post game comments. He's a straight shooter, and that's what this team
Yeah.
needs right now. Is calling it like it is, saying, "Hey, we struggled with this tonight. Unacceptable. Cannot happen." That's the point that they have reached. And so, for me, like I said, I think this leadership group is still figuring things out. That's an observation period. You got to cut Keller some slack there. He's figuring it out. But for me, Sergachev deserves to be in that rotation and wearing an A on his sweater.
Yeah,
And
those 2 Stanley Cup rings, right? That speaks volumes, and it's you just can't overlook that, and he's just been crucial to this team.
an interesting facet to that too is when you do think of kind of that last captain on the franchise that really made an impact. I mean, you immediately think of Shane Doan, right? Most of these players didn't play with Doan, or if they did, it was only for a limited time. I off the top of my head, I'm thinking it was only probably Keller and Krause for a small amount of time. Maybe Schmaltz. I'm trying to think of what season.
I don't think Keller did.
Keller did for at least a couple
in those
weeks.
those 3
Yeah.
games, we got
Yeah.
under Dave Tippett.
And I don't remember if Krause was up full time at that point yet or not. So they kind of had temporary captains. I mean, OEL was obviously the captain for several seasons, but his qualities were a lot different than Doan's. And then there were kind of veterans that would come in and out with the team through kind of those real big rebuilding years. And a lot of those guys who would wear an A may not have been around the next season. So there is a lot of adjustment. And on the flip side, you had Sergachev, who never really was a leader in Tampa Bay per se, but had Hedman, Stamkos in front of him, McDonough at times, all these guys that you really kind of amplify, just are great examples of what kind of the pure-blooded NHL captain are. And he got to watch it. He got to win with them. And it's going to be a good mix to have him kind of being there and being able to kind of lead in that way and kind of bring what he saw in Tampa work into the room. And then it's also going to be important to have the guys who have been around and know what it's like to be pulling out and have kind of all the motivation and dedication to the team and franchise also want to be the leader. So I think you're right. It's a learning situation right now, but maybe this is something where it really develops into a really strong leadership core as they keep on growing together.
Yeah, like I said, it's a learning opportunity, but there's just so many things that, as of late, Sergachev is showing that he deserves to be a part of that leadership group. And I don't think, I think it's hard to trade for a guy, bring him in, and put an A on his sweater right away.
Agreed.
I think they've been kind of wanting to watch and see how it goes. And I think at some point, I can't say whether or not this season, but I think I would be shocked if next year, we don't see, Sergachev in more of a leadership role. He just does it all. Another play that came to mind was last night on Bukestad's goal. Sergachev, dove on the ice to keep that puck alive near the blue line, got it to Keller. Keller, set up Schmaltz. He takes the shot. Bukestad cleans up the rebound. Like, that doesn't happen unless, Sergachev makes that play. And, a quote that stands out to me is I was talking to Coach the other day, and I just asked him, how critical has it been to have a guy like Sergachev on this team who doesn't wear an A, but is still a leader? And he says, "Oh, it means everything." He said he's all in, which I love that, and he's showing that. He doesn't just talk the talk; he walks it, out on the ice. So for me, that's something that needs to happen at some point.
Yeah, I know who I want to get my first Utah hockey jersey's name imprinted on, to be honest, but I won't say names. Something a little bit brighter then, after we've kind of, put our umbrellas up and weathered the storm a little bit of the past couple of weeks of the bumps. Who have been your 3 stars of the season? I think I know who one will be, but if you had to make a list of those 3 stars from game 1 all the way to game 19, who would those be?
I think starting with number 3, I'd probably go with Kesselring.
Mm,
I think that he has really stepped up, in absence of Dursey and Marino, and
yeah.
I am very impressed with his offensive contributions. I think, I mean, he's made some mistakes, but again,
Yeah.
he's stepping into kind of the next step of his career, right? Not just a bottom guy, but stepping up to that top line, and has moved around a little bit, and he's weathered it. I think with a lot of maturity and composure, and I believe he still leads the team in plus minus. I'm not sure how that was impacted last night, but I think coming into last night he was +8, which most of the guys on the team are in the negative category. So, +8, he's gotten involved in the offensive game. He's incredible on the rush. His zone
Yeah.
entries are very, very good. So Kesselring number 3 for me. I think 2, you got to go with Kells. He's leading the team in points. Yeah, he hasn't scored for quite a few games, but he's consistently putting points on the board. He's contributing, and he has. I think he's leading the team in goals still.
And the effort's always there with him, right?
Yeah, the
Yeah, it
effort's
really
always
is.
there. I mean, he's getting involved. He plays his game. Um, he's a lot of fun to watch. Before I started covering this team, I didn't watch Keller a whole lot, but just he's very quick. He's got a lot of
Mhm.
agility. He's very graceful with the puck, which is a lot of fun to watch. And they obviously use him heavily every time he's on the ice, but especially on the power play. Everything kind of funnels through Keller, and I think he does a good job. Obviously, the power play has been struggling, but I don't think that's really to the fault of Keller. And then number 1, I think Sergachev's the best player on this team right now. He's doing a little bit of everything. He's
Yeah.
scoring goals. He's getting assists. He's playing very good defense. He's protecting his teammates. He's getting involved. When he needs to. He's making big effort plays. Whether that's taking a puck off the side of the helmet to block a shot. And he's leading the team in minutes. He's playing on every unit. Like, I could go on and on and on, but for me,
Mhm.
Sergachev's the best player on this team right now, and then Cal's number 2 and Kesselring number 3.
You didn't mention that Sergachev by far has the best sallies too so far. Because man, I just get so pumped up when he
Well, it's because
scores.
you don't always see it. Like the
No.
first couple of goals he scored, he's like, oh yeah, whatever, I scored. But as
Hmm.
of late, like when he puts it in the back of the net, he's letting them know, and I think it just means more when he scores.
Yeah, I have to agree. And Kesselring has been a phenomenal surprise. We did all of our kind of preseason report cards on all the roster players at cleanhitshockey.com, and I had the Kesselring on my team, so wrote a little bit about him. And last year, you could see those glimpses of that offensive upside. It just seemed like he didn't always know when to pinch really deep or when to kind of lay back a little bit now. And maybe it's just having that confidence of having Sergachev next to him or better defensive partners. But man, his instincts are just top notch right now. And the hustle to get back after he does make a big play is there. It's really impressive. And it's interesting to think that going into the season, we were all talking about how not only was the right side of the defense a little weak, with Marino and Dursey kind of being the only two that you felt confident in, and the prospect pool felt a little shallow. And now it's kind of like once Marino and Dursey's back, Kesselring's not going to get top for minutes. Or are we going to put Dursey on the left-hand side? But then what do we do with Maverick Lamoureux? And it's
Mm-hmm.
going to be interesting to see how that pipeline kind of evolves.
Yeah, for
Yeah, I
sure.
think uh, I
Go
think
ahead.
Michael Kesselring year over year is probably the most. He's probably made the biggest jump, right, from last year
Mm-hmm.
to this year.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. For me, I think he's been the biggest surprise. Just stepped up when the team has needed him to, and to your point, Brad, I think when this team can get Marino and Dursey back, and if they can be completely healthy, I think this defense is a lot better.
Yeah.
than most were expecting, which is very, very exciting. Because there's a lot of problems right now, and so if when those guys come back, I think this defense is pretty darn solid. And yeah, they'll have to figure out what to do with Lamoureux, but there's still some good prospects, and so it's only up from here. And I think the defense honestly has been playing better as of late. Aside obviously there were 6 goals last night, but if we're looking at forwards and defensemen, I think the defensemen have held their ground better more over the last few games.
Yeah, I'd have to agree, and it's kind of interesting because it's easy to point about the shortcomings of the team and how they're missing 2 top 4 defensemen and whatnot, but Kesselring's looking the part right now. Maverick Lamoureux, yeah, he will have some mistakes. He had a couple last night, but he's eating minutes. He's filling in. He hasn't really. I mean, he's looked a lot better than some of the, Kolichonok, who was kind of on the roster for a little bit at the beginning of the season and still more of a bubble player. It's been impressive to see Maverick Lamoureux really take this opportunity, and then Alimata has fit like a glove right now, and it's really hard to complain that top 4 hasn't been very solid. And then Cole is who he is, but there's a lot of times that if he is not on the ice, there could have been way more high danger chances. There could have been. He's one of the true like stabilizer, and I think he'll probably always be kind of an underappreciated player. It's easier to kind of notice him when he takes a penalty. It's not as easy to notice that maybe if he didn't take that penalty, it could have resulted in a goal, could have resulted in a very high danger chance, or they could have left the team kind of frantic. So speaking of underrated players, I gotta know who your number 1 underrated player is. So we've kind of talked about some of the bigger names, kind of the impact players we've already seen. Is there one guy, maybe even off the ice, that just kind of impresses you day in, day out, that just doesn't get the same chatter about their play?
Yeah, I think it's tough. If I was going to go with, I'm going to do 2. If I was going to go with an offensive player, I don't think Kerfoot gets enough credit for the way that he plays. As I've just kind of been reviewing some of the games this year and rewatching highlights and tapes and stuff like that, like he's had some pretty unbelievable plays that have resulted in goals. High effort, high IQ plays. He did against the Rangers. He hit the forecheck pretty hard. He poked a free puck away. He went behind his back to play it off the boards, spun around the post, and then set Keller up for a one-timer to score on the Rangers, which was just unbelievable. He did something similar, I want to say, against the Islanders when Josh Stone scored to tie that game up late. Inside the offensive zone, won a puck back, delivered an unbelievable pass, and put it right on the stick of Doan, who scored. So I think Kerfoot for me would be the forward that maybe goes a little underrated. I think he's, just very talented. He's very good with the puck. He's very smart. He makes things happen. He's been playing quite a few minutes on the power play, and I think
top unit.
There's a lot of reasons for that. Smart player. Crafty, skilled with the puck, good handles. So for me, Kerfoot is a forward. Defensively, I'm kind of split. I know we talked a lot about Kesselring. To be honest, I've been really impressed with Lamoureux. He has had some rookie moments. He's had some young moments. But this team is not a legitimate playoff contender. It's not like, oh, man, this rookie's really costing us, key points. It's like, he's made a couple of mistakes. Yeah, he had one last night. Whatever. The game was 6-2. It wasn't going to change the outcome. This team can afford for him to learn. But overall, I think he's played very, very well given the situation. He's come in. He's stuck to his game. He hasn't tried to do anything, that he's uncomfortable doing or that isn't a part of his in his arsenal. I think he's come in, he's been solid, he's looked composed, he's looked confident. He's made good plays. He's scored.
Yeah.
I think he's got an assist or two. You know, he fought, which I was very impressed with how
Yep.
he held himself there, and he makes plays at times that I think go overlooked. The other night, I think on Bukestad's goal against Carolina, he had a crucial save right at the blue line to keep the puck alive. They moved it through, and Bukestad ended up scoring. Again, kind of like that Sergachev effort. You know, it gets overlooked immediately because, you know, obviously you're going to give credit to the goal scorer, whoever sets them up for an assist. But I like those kinds of plays because they're critical. They're overlooked, but they're critical. And then his stick has been very good. He's had a lot of big time poke checks. I mean, the guy's like 7 feet on his skates.
Yeah.
He probably has the longest stick, you know, on the entire team, which helps.
Can almost touch the other boards.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd love to see him lay out and just see, you know, from his skates to the top of his stick, how far he stretches. But he's been good. He got a little bit of some negativity, some negative comments, just from fans and whatnot yesterday. But if people really just kind of sat back and realized the situation that he's in, how young he is, this is a very good hockey player that I think is going to be one of the faces of the franchise moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's been reassuring to see where he is in his development, Maverick Lamoureux, because, I mean, considering all the time he missed he had mono, he had the shoulder injury that kept him out of the Q playoffs and the Memorial Cup last year. So he looked like he'd really not taken a step back in his development, but just needed a lot of playing time, right? Go down to Tucson as a first-year pro and just play and avoid the injury bug. But I think, where he's at, I don't know if he's ahead in his development, but he's on par as if he didn't even miss that time with the injury. So that's been really reassuring to see, especially with the limited prospect depth defensively, at least for this organization, to know that we have a piece that hasn't lost a step and he seems to be on par with where he should be development-wise.
For sure.
Yeah. And it seems like the locker room, having so many young players and vets, is probably a decent mix. Does it seem like everybody's kind of really gelling together? The younger players getting a lot of quality time with the vets and kind of learning from them. How's that kind of just feeling, especially now with a little bit of the rockiness going on? It's again, I kind of foreshadowed that maybe this road trip will be a great learning experience and bonding experience for the team, but just kind of want to see your insight on that as well.
Yeah, I think for the most part, everybody gets along. It's a close group. I definitely think that there are some frustrations just as a whole.
Yeah.
Not with any particular players, just as a team. And so I think this road trip is coming at a good time. It's not a particularly difficult road trip. You're playing a Boston team that just fired their coach. Obviously, that can have certain impacts on how a team performs, but Boston's not doing overly well. Pittsburgh is terrible. Montreal's not that good, and Toronto has been up and down. Not quite as intensely as a team like Utah, but they're up and down, and so it's a good opportunity to come together, to figure things out, to find solutions, to spend time together, and hopefully get some wins. I mean, I think the best thing for this team to do would be to pick up 6 points, 5 or 6 points on this road trip. I think it's a must. You have to win at least 2 games of these 4, and I think you got to get a point out of one of the other 2 games. If you come home from this road trip with just 2 or 3 points, it's going to be really hard to continue. I mean, November has been a gauntlet, and you have got to finish this back half strong.
Yeah, and we all know about the U.S. Thanksgiving rule, right? Where I believe it's 3/4 of teams who are in a playoff position as of the American Thanksgiving make the playoffs, and the other teams don't. So right now, Utah is not in it, and if they can get 6 points out of the next 4 games, that's a big boost in getting back into that playoff picture.
For sure.
Yeah, build up some momentum, find some consistency in the game, find some consistency in the play. And is there any particular reasoning or anything that you may have noticed of why we've been seeing kind of this inconsistency, whether it's from the vets or the younger players, or does it just kind of feel like players are gripping their sticks a little too tight? Things are just not, the puck luck isn't quite there, and kind of that drive doesn't last the full 60 minutes that they need.
Unfortunately, I think it's a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
The goaltending has not been good as of late. I mentioned this in an article last night that I think it's time to start to shift that rotation more in favor of Vemelka. And that's all I'll say in terms of that. In other areas, the power play has just been terrible. There's really there's no sugarcoating it. I think they dropped
0
to
for
number
6.
0 for 7 actually.
Was it 0 for 7 last night?
Yeah, 0 for 7.
So bad you couldn't even tell it was a power play.
Well, and 30 seconds of a 2-man advantage too.
It was a 18-second power play that was that 7th one, but it still counts on the score sheet. 0 for 7. They dropped to number 28 in the NHL in terms of power play, I think, at about 13.9%, which is just not good. And when you kind of dissect the power play, they have good possession. They're generally in the offensive zone for 40 to 60 seconds. Of the 2 minutes, maybe even more. It'd be interesting to look, further into that. But they're passing too many times. There was one instance last night, and it may have happened more than once, where Keller sent a pass cross ice. It went through the slot right to Gunther at the left faceoff circle, which is his spot. He likes it. Instead of a one-timer, he received the pass, collected it and then shot, which gave the goaltender time to, move over to that post. He had no issues saving it, and they weren't generating traffic. There were not bodies in front of the net. So, the penalty, the power play unit just needs to quit making too many passes. It just feels like it's one too many passes, and it's not enough shots on goal. I know that their style is not necessarily quantity of shots, it's more quality, but it's like, look, the quality thing is not working right now. Just throw the thing on the net. So power play needs to improve. And I think they haven't quite figured out the lines yet. I mean, those have changed almost on a nightly basis.
Yeah.
There's, unfortunately, Utah fans, there's a lot of things that need to be fixed right now.
I think
team, they're not bad. They're not a bad hockey team. They're just in a slump, and it's one of those stretches where you just don't know what's going to fix it.
I think especially that the point there, players gripping their sticks and not shooting enough. Twice last night, Nick Schmaltz, right, wide open net, and just shoot. Especially you're looking for that first goal of the year, and it's in his head at this point, right? We're almost in 100%. December. It doesn't have a goal, and he's not exactly a goal scorer, but he did have 20 something last year, right? And as soon as he gets that first one, the second, third, fourth one won't be far behind, but he's got to get that first one, and it's got to happen soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're right.
Well, I think this road trip is going to be a great test, just like you mentioned. I think coming out with 5 points that's kind of the goal I have circled, the number I have circled. That would feel pretty great coming out a little bit ahead of the what we're typically seeing in a couple game stretches right now, and building off that momentum and running with it. And consistency seems to be the name of the game right now. When Dursey first went out and Marino wasn't coming back, it seemed like there was an adjustment to figure out what this blue line was going to look like, and a little scrambling to find a replacement player to come up and take that spot. Maverick Lamoureux and Mata have been great in that spot. It seems like the blue line isn't necessarily the problem that we all are kind of thinking it may have been. And now it's time for everybody to kind of figure out and get the chemistry going again. And obviously definitely need to find more offensive power and touches and opportunities.
I mean, they just need to reproduce what they did against Carolina. Full effort from everybody for 60 minutes, get bodies in front of the net, create create turnovers, get on the rush, get the defense involved on the rush.
Yeah.
Kesselring, like we talked about earlier, he was great against Carolina. He generated that opportunity for McBain, which they ended up scoring on. And just don't have bad stretches. Don't allow things to build up and to snowball. Just play consistent. Take shots, get bodies in front of the net, crash hard.
Move their feet too, especially on the power play, right? It's far too stationary.
Now,
like
last
like
night,
Dylan Gunther just setting up shop in the circle, right? Like, he's going to shoot there, so it's easy to defend.
Last night, I actually thought they were moving a little bit better, but it was almost became a detriment because I noticed that they would all kind of start creeping up to the net, but still try to make these kind of outlandish plays or these real pretty plays. And it was like both things can't work at the same time. I don't know. I think they're probably overthinking things a little bit right now too. But yeah, a little bit new mix would be good and kind of scheme. Getting a power play goal early on their opportunities would probably go a long way too.
It just needs to be faster. When you think about Alexander Ovechkin, he's made an absolutely unbelievable career of doing the same thing every single night. Everybody knows his spot. I talked to Mata about this the other day. He's like, and I said, how do you defend against him? And he's like, it's awareness, because everybody knows where he's going to be and when he's going to shoot. But what separates him is he kind of sneaks around, and then he waits for the right moment to get to his spot, and then the puck comes fast and he puts it on goal. He did it against Utah. He did it against Vegas. He's done it so many times that he's going to be the all-time leading goal leader in the NHL.
Yep.
That to me, like, I see a lot of similarities in Gunther's finishing to Ovechkin, but I think what needs to change is, dude, you can't just sit in your spot and wait for the puck to come to you. You got to move more. You got to lose your defender. You got to make people forget that you're there. And then when that pass comes, take the one-timer and just live with those results. And that's how he found success early. That's what he did against Chicago. That's what he did against the Islanders. That's what he did against the Rangers. And he had 5 goals in 3 games. Let's get back to that kind of production.
Yep. Yeah, well, again, great tests coming up. We got a couple teams with some pretty shaky goaltending. We have a Boston Bruins team who's also struggling to score. Coming out on top here would be a really nice way to kind of kick off this second quarter of the season. Well, Cole, thanks again. Thanks as always for coming on the show. Make sure you're following Cole Bagley on Twitter. His handle is @Bagley KSL Sports. Make sure you're checking out all of his articles on KSL, all of his post-game features. He's doing a fantastic job covering the team, kind of one of our favorite go-tos to have on the show as well. So we always appreciate you coming on. Anything else you want to plug, Cole?
That's it. Thanks so much for having me on, guys. It's always fun, and I know this team's struggling right now, but hey, it's still NHL hockey. It's still a lot of fun to watch, and they will figure it out eventually.
Yes, and we have seen this before, so
I'm sure
we are just kind of a little numb to it. But I think our expectations were a little bit higher. But I mean, I've seen this team kind of go up and down before, and there's a good chance that they can start stringing some wins together. Teams may start to kind of ease up on them a little bit or not have the same expectations that they may have at the start of the season here. And Utah will be able to pounce on them. We saw that a little bit last December with the Arizona Coyotes taking down, what was it, the last 5 Stanley Cup winning teams in a row or something crazy like that. So hopefully we start to see some more consistency, see some more dubs, and get that offense rolling. Corey, anything else you want to say?
This can be a favorable part of the schedule, right?
Yep.
As much as Boston's going to have some momentum, but the coaching change, they still haven't performed well all year. Pittsburgh's at the bottom. Montreal's at the bottom too. Obviously, Toronto's at the top, but Austin Matthews may be unavailable for that game. So, I mean, I don't think they're going to get all 8 points, but certainly the schedule can be favorable where if they do play the 60 minutes, they can come out with, at least 5-6, I think. And if they can do that, they're back in the mix. And then if not, then this might be a different conversation in a week from now.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, make sure you are liking, subscribing to all of our content. Make sure you follow us at cleanhitshockey.com, and we will catch you next time. Cole, safe travels. Have fun at those games, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.
Appreciate it.
We know we're running it now.